Hey, this is Andrea Bommarito over here in St. Louis, Missouri with ZSK Machines, not Cena Corporation. And today we are in Wilcom. I'd like to show you a tutorial on how to use the team name feature within Wilcom. A lot of people also like to refer to this as a name drop function. And what this allows us to do is to do a personalization order with several names in one design. And it's really easy to use and it makes production a lot easier. So let's go ahead and dive in. First thing is let's go ahead and start a new design. So I will left click on File and New Design. And with New Design up, I have a nice blank screen. Your screen may look a little bit different than mine just because of your preferences, but that's okay. We can keep going. One thing I do like to make sure of is that my toolbar is showing. It's utilizing a lot of the tools that I use quite a bit. And then also, we're going to touch a little bit on the Dockers. The Dockers is over here on the right-hand side. You have several options for Dockers. But a lot of the main ones that I like to make sure are showing are team names, object properties, and color object list. These things are flyout menus that can automatically hide, or you can actually pin them so that they're anchored on the right-hand side. So to make sure that you have the toolbars and the Dockers showing, we're going to scroll down, or I'm sorry, we're going to left click on Window on the main menu bar. Scroll down to Toolbars, and first of all, make sure that Docker is selected, and then also make sure that Toolbox is selected. The Dockers over here, this shows you what Dockers are available, and if I do click on one, so for example, clip art, it's going to go ahead and make it a flyout. Right now it's auto hiding, or I'm sorry, right now it's anchored. So in order to auto hide it, because I don't need it, but I still want it as a tab over there, I can click on this little thumbtack or a little pin, select that, and now you can see it is a little tab that I can, quickly open and anchor or not anchor. Just depends on what I want to do. So with our toolbox open, you can quickly access the team names just by clicking on the icon. Looks like three little people, and we're going to left click on that, and our team names does come up. I will go ahead and anchor this, and I'll just left click on the little pin. You'll see it go horizontal to vertical, and now it is anchored. And you can actually see too that my screen or my workspace is pushed out from underneath there so that I don't have any additional workspace underneath this toolbar. All right, in the toolbar, we have quite a few things that we can utilize. One is managing our team names. Um, for this, we are just going to do simple, name drop, with one name. So there are a lot of things in here that we can do that we'll visit in another video at another time. So you can import or export your team names. So importing like with a CSV file or a TXT file, which is really nice, especially if you do like spreadsheets and things like that. And you can export it too so that you can have those names on a sheet when you go to embroider. The name order, we're going to click on this one right now. So if I left click on this one, and you have name 1, 2, and 3. So you can input 3 different, like a first, middle, and last name, or a first name and a number, but, name 3 wouldn't have anything. This one, we're just going to do one name, first names. So here, we can eliminate name 2 and name 3, those options just by clicking on the drop-down menu and hitting none. Then we'll go to name 2 and use the drop-down menu with the left click and then left click on none and then press OK. That way, we only have one name that we really have to worry about. We don't have to, worry about those other 2 columns there. Within the names, we can set through our object properties the font, the size, and actually restrict your text path to a certain size, especially if you are working with a certain size hoop and you don't want your letters to go outside the parameters of that hoop. That's a really, really awesome option there. And it will actually, with certain functions or certain settings, it will automatically change, like make lettering thinner if it has to fit on that line, but keep the same font style. So it's really, really kind of cool. We have the ability to organize our names, ascending or descending. There's the object properties. We can take those properties, apply, like if we apply it to one, we can apply it to all the names. We can actually create each name as an individual design. We have a matrix if you're doing it like for patches or anything like that. We can select all the names and we can remove selected team members, you know. So first things first, let's just start entering in names. So under name 1, I am going to left click to highlight it, and we'll do about 10 names here. Left double click to input the cursor, and now I can start writing names. So I'm just going to say William, and now I will hit tab. When I hit tab, it advances to the next name. Don't hit enter because enter will input the name, which is fine. You can do that, but it won't advance to the next name. So we'll do Adam, tab, Andrea, Sarah. Let's do a long name, Bernadette. Let's do a short name. I have a hard time thinking of names right now for some reason. So we'll do Alex, tab. Okay, so after we've entered in the names, let's see, how many names do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I did 10. There we go. So after we have these names, we can select them all just by clicking on name 1, or we can click on this option right here called select all. Here, I am going to select object properties. When I select object properties, that Docker comes out. I am going to go ahead and pin this on my screen here. What we will do with this is we'll leave it as is, and we are just going to go up to stitch and generate stitches that we'll put in our stitching for all of our letters. So what we have is we have each name stacked on top of each other. And if I click on a single name here, it will show me the settings and just that name. So you can see each one as I go through here. Now, if I would like to change anything, let's just take the first name here, and I want to change the settings, such as I want to change the font style. Let's go ahead and use the drop-down arrow next to the fonts. We will scroll down, we'll choose a different font. Let's go ahead and choose this one right here. And now if I go to Adam, Adam's going to still be the same as it was when we first selected it. So if I select this one and I say, okay, I want all of them to be the same, that's where I choose this apply to all. So if I left click on that, apply to all, now I am, let's go ahead and select, whoops, press the wrong button. If I select them all, let's go up to stitch and generate stitches and generate everything. So now I can see that each one of these are the same. You can have names with different settings, but typically we do have them all the same. So I'm going to go back to William. Let's go change that stitch style. And let's do something a little bit thicker. Let's go back to, actually, I'll just go to Bounty right here. With this one, if I do want to change, let's scroll in here. I'm just using my mouse to zoom in here. If I want to change any settings, such as the underlay, the density, the pull compensation, anything like that, I can do that here. So I'll just go to the underlay, and maybe I don't want a second underlay right there. I just want the first underlay. But again, if I go to Atom, Atom is going to be different um, because we haven't applied everything. So I do that. I can go up to my fills. I can change the density, all those different stitch types that you want to change, you can change. Same thing with the stitch setting, or I'm sorry, the lettering settings in here. So you can choose your style. Again, let's just go through here, and those are chenille. So let's do copperplate. You have the different settings in here that you can choose from. Let's go back and we'll just choose a block. Block 2. Let's go back to that. All right, so we have that. We can change the height if we would like. Let's say I want to do about a half an inch, which I'm in millimeters right now. You can change your settings for, which, if you want metric or US, you could change that right up here at the top. And that's going to be on this toolbar, which is your view toolbar. If you don't have that up, you can go up to Window, Toolbars, and make sure View is selected. Okay, so I am in metric. Again, we'll select William. I am going to go ahead and type in 12.7. That's about a half an inch. And you can see here it says you can do the width and italicized right here as well. And these are all, the same things as your lettering settings that you're used to when doing normal lettering. We also have the baseline, which is right now it says a fixed line. In my settings underneath the fixed line, if I click on that, what you see is a length here and a line angle. Right now my lettering is on a horizontal line, and the length is approximately 6 inches. So let's say I want to keep that on 5 inches or even 4 inches or 100 millimeters. What I can do is limit the length of the text line to 100. Now when I do that, if I fit the text, I can use spacing, width, size, spacing and width, or spacing and size. And with these, if I choose spacing and width, let's choose that and press OK. And then go ahead and apply to all. Let's look. First, we'll go up to Stitch and Generate Stitches. Let's look at Bernadette. And she is on the 100 millimeters, so I guess maybe we'll make our length even a little bit smaller because that wasn't a good example. So let's go ahead and take that to, let's take it to something like 60, press OK. Now what happens is that you see the letters, they do start to compress, and that is with that setting, the spacing and the width. So with the size, if I press OK, you can see that the size changes based on the text path. So my height, like everything changes proportionately. So if I click on settings again, if I do width, press OK, you can see that my letters get taller because of the width of the text path. Spacing, press OK. Now, what it does is this keeps everything, as far as the letters go, it keeps the height correct and the width correct, but it alters the spacing so that it fits on that line. Let's go back to settings and spacing and size. Let's press OK. So you can see the spacing and the size are changed based on the text path. I usually like to do spacing and width because when I press OK, it's the same height as your other letters, and that's typically what I see in orders. So let's go ahead and apply this to all. And then we'll go to Stitch and Generate Stitches. Now let's go look at the different letters. So you can see a lot of these will be very similar, and then Bernadette gets, more compressed. Nicholas also gets a little bit more compressed, but and also Courtney. So the other thing I want to point out is that you can also see that my, the text type changed and also my underlay changed because that's what I changed in there. You do have all these other settings that you can work with too. Like if you want full justification on that 60 millimeter text path, remember we put 60 millimeters here. We'll press OK. You can do that so that when we go to the smaller ones, and let's apply that to all, generate the stitches. Let's go to Atom. You can see Atom is completely spaced out so that it fills in that 60 millimeters. So it just depends on what you want to do. Let's go ahead and bring that back to center. We'll go ahead and apply that to all, stitch, and generate stitches. So now you see each individual name here. If I select all of them, you'll see, you can select all of them and you'll see them on top of each other. So this is one design right now with William stitching first and then Adam stitching right on top of it, then Andrea stitching right on top of that, Sarah stitching right on top of that, so on and so forth. We can go in and change those settings. I showed you kind of brief introduction on how to do so. So that is important with that apply to all option right there. Now, before we go to export the design, we want to go over a few more options that you have here. And, as I said before, you do have your design stitching or your lettering stitching on top of each other. So you have William stitching, then Adam stitching, then Andrea stitching, so on and so forth. You have options to where you can export the design with stops in between, or you can export each name as a design. It's up to you on how you want to do so. Typically, the way that I export is exporting with stops in between, and then that way you can program the machine to stop in between. First things first, though, is that I want to make sure that my origin is the center, and that's the center of every name. Now, it will apply to every name, so that is the origin point. To make sure that the auto center is on, we'll go up to Design and Auto Start and End, and we left click on here. And this is what I typically have just for all my designs: apply auto start and end and maintain automatically. And the method is auto start and end with center center. So it'll automatically put your center point when you add elements or when you digitize. As you digitize, it'll recenter your origin point. I typically have this just as my default. So if you don't, what I would do is just select all those, hit save, and once you hit save, it will save it to the normal template. Press OK, and that's normal templates like your default. So then I will press OK. Okay, so with all of my letters selected, there's a couple other things that I want to show you. So once we did the auto start and end, it deselected my items. So I'm just going to go over here to select the areas. And with that, you see that there's that auto center. Okay, so we did kind of go through and talk about properties, but here, if you would like to create each name as an individual design within the software, you can click here, Create Designs, and when I click, you'll see that it will populate each name, and I'll have a whole bunch of tabs up here. Each name will be a design, so I can actually see each one independently. That's really helpful, like so for things that if you do all the names and then all of a sudden, you give your customer their uniforms, and then one of the guys comes back and it says, "Hey, Sarah, she had a problem with her uniform. It got bleached in the wash or something like that, and I need a new one." You could go in and actually select Sarah, make that an individual design and then export that just design. So it's the same settings as it was before. So if you want to just do one of them, you can. Now I'm going to close out all of these guys. So of course you would want to save your team names design first, and then when you open it back up, I can actually take Sarah just by itself and say, create a design from it. And then I've got just Sarah. I can export that on its own. I don't have to export all the names and skip through it or however it may be. So we'll go back to our team names, select all the names. And when I select all the names here under name 1, what you can do is you can sort your names alphabetically, A to Z or Z to A. Now that'll affect the sewing order. So if I sort ascending, you'll see that Adam starts sewing first and then William sews last. And then if I go to Z to A, it will be opposite. So that will, in fact, change your sewing order. If you do want to export your names in a CSV or TXT format, you can, and then that'll show you the name order. So, or if I want to keep that in a spreadsheet or anything like that, I can export the team names hitting this button right here. And what I can do is I'm just going to put this on my desktop and I'm going to just keep it as team names, hit save. And after I do that, I can actually go in. Let's say we want to open up Excel and I have a blank workbook and I want to import my text file. I'll go to my desktop where it was stored. There's my team names. I'll hit import. It'll ask me how I want to import them. I'll just hit transform the data. And you can see all my names, the order of my names here. So that's a nice feature that we have within the team names function. Now you can check the stitch order by the color object list. So over here on the right hand side on our Docker, we do have color object list. And if we left click on that, you are going to see the color object list. Let's go ahead and pin it just for now. But with the color object list, it does show me. When I click on William, you can see William is selected. That's going to stitch first, second, third, fourth, fifth, so on and so forth. So it's kind of nice to be able to see that too whenever we go in and let's select all the names and we go from A to Z. See, it changes over here too. So we can say, okay, that definitely is changing. All right, so now for the export. When we export the design, we can export it as a DST that will divide the names into different colors by the options that we choose. So first of all, we are going to go to File and Export Machine File. Here we will choose the DST file format. And I'm just going to put it on my desktop and I'm just going to name this Team Names. I then, before I hit save, I need to select options. That's kind of an important piece right here. So we will select the options icon or the options button. And here we have the DST file icon. If you want to save that file icon, that's the DGT file format. But the important part over here is team names. So when we click on team names, you have several options. Because we are just doing names, we only want to do team names only with stops. That means it will stitch Adam and then have a color stop. Then it'll stitch Alex and then have a color stop. And that's all in one design. If you do want to create multiple output files, you can select here, which would mean each name would be a different file. So it would be team names -1, team names -2, team names -3. And that would be your each name. So it would export about 10 different files. Now those two options are really only applicable for what we're working with. These other three options for designs are more associated with a team name or name drop with a logo or a design that stitches with it. So the first option here, design and team names with stops. What that means is that it's going to show the design once, and then then each name will have a color stop in between. The next one is repeated design and team names with stops, meaning that it will stitch a design with each name. So for example, if the design stitches first, it will stitch the design and then the name. And then it'll stitch the design again and then the name. And then it'll stitch the design again and then the next name, so on and so forth. So for this design, for example, we would have a logo. It would stitch the logo and then the name Adam, and then it would stitch the logo again, and then it would stitch the name Alex. So you would input your stops after each name. The next one, design part only, that means that it'll stitch only design, no team names with it. That's helpful if you're doing, like maybe you're doing the design part only, and then you're also doing the team names, like with a multi-head or something like that. That's helpful. So it all depends on your situation, whichever one you want. Typically, what I see is repeated design and team names with stops. That's with single heads, and then team names only with stops, again with single heads. So design part only is design part only. Team names only is that if I did have a design in there, it would only do the team names. So the create multiple output files, if you do have a logo in there, that means that it'll stitch the design with the name and do 10 different, well, in this example, 10 different files with the design and the name. So this is just going to be team names only with stops. I'll go ahead and hit OK. And then now I can save. So I have saved that and hit OK. And so let's just look to see what it would look like on the machine. I'm just going to go to a new design here. That's just this little paper right here. And I will import the embroidery. And once I click on this, I do need to find, let's just go and filter this with just DST files only. A lot easier. Find this, go ahead and open it. And now you can see that all my letters are, or all my names are different colors. So that way I can go into the machine and say, have it be one color, but then just keep all the stops in between. So it'll stitch Adam first, and then Alex, and then Andrea. And I can follow that worksheet if I want. Here's that worksheet. Well, actually, that's the wrong worksheet. It would be reverse of this because we changed the order. But you can have your worksheet print out your worksheet so you have that when you are putting on the different garments. Because I don't know, sometimes everything's the same, like backpacks, but sometimes you're doing shirts that have different sizes with it, and you need to make sure that it coordinates with the right name. So that's an important part right here that you would want to make sure you've got that order printed with your order so you know what is going to stitch when. So let's go back here, and that is kind of the conclusion of this little tutorial. I hope this helps you out. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I am happy to help you. Remember, zskmachines.com here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I hope you guys all had a great little video with me. Thanks.